Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 109 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwa Jr. Today is November 13th, 2024, and today I have a special guest, Nick Bowcott, guitarist of the British heavy metal band Grim Reaper. Nick formed Grim Reaper in 1979, and the band released three hard-hitting records: See You in Hell in 1984, Fear No Evil in 1985, and Rock You to Hell in 1987. During this interview, Nick talks about his time in Grim Reaper, what it was like working with the late Grim Reaper vocalist Steve Grimmett, and his life after Grim Reaper as a music journalist and brand ambassador. In addition, Nick talks about the upcoming tribute show to Steve Grimmett that will take place on November 23rd at the Wings of Angels Festival in Swindon, UK. This event will reunite Nick with former Grim Reaper members Mark Simon, drummer, and Dave Wanklin, bass. So let's get started. Here is Nick Bowcott. Hey everyone, welcome to the Rock Interview Series. We have Nick, formerly of the group Grim Reaper, with us. Nick is going to be participating in a tribute to former Grim Reaper vocalist Steve Grimmett, who unfortunately passed away in 2022. And there's going to be a show on November 23rd, which is going to be a tribute to Grim Reaper and feature two other members of Grim Reaper, the classic lineup. Mark Simon and Dave Wanklin will be performing on that night. Nick, this is the first time you played together with these guys in a long time, right? Like 30 years, correct?
Yeah, I played with Steve. Like I've played with Steve a few times until he passed. Unfortunately, we did Sweden Rock in like before COVID. We headlined the Whiskey. The agreement was that I formed Grim Reaper way back in 78, 79. Then Steve joined. Steve was the second singer and the guy we obviously did See You in Hell with, and it became what people know and love as, well, allegedly love. And so the agreement was then for legal reasons, we had to split up. Making a long story not too long, we signed to a small label called Ebony Records in England. And that's where we recorded See You in Hell. And that was recorded in somebody's house, by the way, in 3 days, total, including the mix. That was the guy who ran the studio. He lived in what they call a council house, which is a semi-detached sort of like council government-owned housing. But he had a studio built in that. So we recorded it there. Long story short, after 3 albums, he breached his contract. We got out of it. Then he decided to sue us. And he was such a moron, he sued the wrong RCA. He sued RCA England. And they basically went, well, nice one, but wrong country. And you can't just take white out and replace USA. You can't replace UK with USA. So we ended up being landlocked in court for 3 years. And while that happened, Steve got offered the job in Onslaught. And we tried to use that as a lever with RCA to just have us record the fourth album while all this went down. And they unfortunately said, you know what, Steve should take that show because we just want to keep you. So I ended up signing directly to RCA. Steve went on to join Onslaught, who were an amazing band, by the way. That record, In Search of Sanity, he did with them, was a masterpiece. Love it to death. And we parted ways. But when Steve came back, he went through various things. I think Lion's Heart he was in as well. Then he contacted me and said, I'd like to do Reaper stuff. And we agreed that unless it was him and me on the stage, it would be called Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper. But when we played together, it would just be called Grim Reaper again. So over the years, we were fortunate enough to play like 4 or 5 shows, like four in America, including headlining a festival in Chicago, which was great. And like I said, we did Sweden Rock, and I think I played with him also. Well, the Whiskey I mentioned. I also played a show with him in Arizona and in all places, Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is where Sweetwater is, which is before I joined Sweetwater, actually, ironically enough. And then sadly, Steve passed in 2022. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is a tribute to him. There was one done pretty soon after his passing in Germany at the Keep It True Festival, which was a truly amazing event. Like Steve Grimmett's Grim Reaper was going to play the pre-show big party thing at the full-blown arena. and they asked me if I would go out, and Harry from Jag Panzer sang, and a couple of other guys, including Steve's son, Russell, who did a great job. So we did a really touching tribute to him in Germany to like 8,000 people, I think it was. It was really moving. But his dear wife Millie wanted to do something for charity in Steve's hometown and in England, hence Wings of Angels. So I, of course, said, yeah, I would, of course, play. And here we are. So, yeah, I won't. That was a very long story, by the way. Sorry. And yeah, I haven't played with Dave since 87 and Mark since 87. So, yeah, 35. It's longer than that, isn't it? 38 years. Holy Mother of God.
Yeah.
I'm older, I should say. But yeah,
We all are, yes. But those were good times, and it's fun to reminisce and go back and listen to those three records that were released. When I was studying for this interview, going back and listening to them, I feel like I like them more now than I did back then. I mean, those are some really all three records are outstanding. The guitar work is incredible. Steve's vocals are out of this world. And I question why you guys weren't more popular. I mean, I was around. I mean, I bought the records back then, and I saw you guys in concert back then. Do you think it was just because there was so much competition that
you know
that
what? I mean, I can give you one reason. Look at this face.
oh, you look cool.
We we loved, we we jokingly called ourselves the ugliest band in metal. In fact, our my stance was the reason of the three. I'm proud of all three records. The one that sold the most was obviously "See You in Hell" because of the song. But I always maintained the reason it sold more than the others is because we were smart enough not to put our photographs on the back, so no one knew how goddamn ugly we really were. But joking aside, yeah, I mean, it was we never back the band was formed for purely selfish reasons. I loved playing those songs, and it was so we didn't do anything we didn't love as a band. That's how me and Steve wrote. I didn't write anything I just thought was okay. I loved it all. I was a huge Judas Priest fan, so they were just I was amazed someone wanted to put them out, and equally amazed when people liked it, and kind of almost suffering from imposter syndrome when some 40 years later they still play those songs on rock radio. I got a text from a friend yesterday saying Sirius played Rock You to Hell after saying some nice things about me, and I didn't pay anyone any money to do that. So go figure.
Well, it's
So
a
yeah,
great song. It deserves to be played a lot.
well, thank you, thank you. Like I said, we did it purely because we loved it. We didn't have any delusions of grandeur. It was just like I couldn't believe it when someone actually said, "Hey, we'll make a record and put it out." That was enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. You also have a signature guitar that's been released recently. It's a Kramer signature Beretta guitar. Can
Correct.
you
Yeah.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that guitar and how much it meant to you to, have your own signature guitar through Kramer?
Yeah, I have one. I have one right behind me, actually, funny
I was
enough.
hoping you would say that.
Yeah, because I teach here at Sweetwater. So yeah, this is the guitar,
Wow.
and it's that's what the headstock looks like. And on the back, it's got the Grim Reaper squiggle I used to do, the little drawing I did on all the demos. But yeah, what happened was, but like back in the day, excuse me, while I put this back on its stand. The first company to ever endorse me was Kramer. And so I was on, of all things, I was in one ad with people like George Lynch and Mick Mars, and I was sitting on an American flag, as irony would have it, because I was the only Brit in the picture. And long story short, Kramer kind of disappeared in 86, 87. They went from being the biggest brand in on the guitar planet, as I understood it, to kind of disappearing without trace. And then Gibson bought them in more recent times and resurrected them magnificently. And I work for Sweetwater, which is a big music retailer. You might have heard of them.
Mhm.
And I've been really good friends with the Gibson guys for years because I worked for Marshall for nearly 20 years. So I know those guys really well. And the Kramer guys would just talk to me about what I liked about, like the biggest show Grim Reaper played was the Texas Jam in '85.
Yep. Yeah,
I, I
that was a great show. That had Deep Purple, the Scorpions, Bon Jovi were some of the
Ted
acts on that.
Nugent. Yeah, Nugent. Yeah, it was one of those pin. That was the show. Then after we played that, I'm like, you know what? If I never play another show in my life, I'll be good with it because two people got married right after we played. No one threw anything at us, so it was all good. When we played, they said that the official door count when we played was 73,000 people. They weren't there to see us, but they got to suffer us anyway, so it was all good. But
Where were you
yes,
guys on that bill? What were you the very first band to play
no,
that?
we were the second. It was Victory. It was a band called Victory who had Charlie Hunan, who played with Nugent back in the
Right.
day, and now he's with oh, what are they called?
He was with Foghat for a while,
Yeah,
but
no, he's still is he still with Foghat or
he left Foghat about 2 years ago.
no? Because he was great. Charlie's
Yeah.
amazing singer, lovely man. So it was Victory, us, and then Bon Jovi, like before Bon Jovi, just before Bon Jovi put out Slippery When Wet. And there's an interesting backstory to it. Our management was so worried. Like I wanted to be at the festival when it opened, and they were like, "No, if you see how many people are there, we think you'll freeze." So like because it was such a big deal, like the organizers sent a limo. It was one of those. It was like Spinal Tap. So management say we'd like them to get there 20 minutes before they go on. So we're in the back of this limo, and he's playing the show is being broadcasted live on some Texas radio station. And the moron driving the limo gets lost. We can see the stadium, but he doesn't know how to get there. So we're in this really dodgy area around where the Cotton Bowl is, and everyone's calm except me. I'm freaking out, going, God damn it, Victory's only got 4 songs left, and we're still not there. And we passed the police station, and the manager says, "Hold on for a second, I'm just going to go in and ask for directions because you obviously, no offense, sir, you don't know where you're going." So Walter O'Brien, who went on to manage Pantera, still a wonderful friend of mine, he goes out to talk to this police station. I'm sitting there for like 30 seconds. I went, F this. And I ran in after him. He was talking to the desk sergeant. And I said, excuse me. I said, look, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm from a small town in England. We're supposed to be playing the Cotton Bowl in 15 minutes, and this guy is lost. Forget directions. Is there any chance you could take us there? And the guy was like, it was like something from Dukes of Hazzard. He's like, hell yeah, we can. And we had a police escort.
Oh,
So we got a police escort to the station. We went from that station to the Cotton Bowl, literally got changed, walked on stage. So there was no fear at all because it was just relief.
yeah.
So
Yeah, that you got there.
73,000 people, it's like, I don't care if there's 5 people and a dog here. We're here. It's great. So yeah, that was a memorable moment.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. And that was your biggest gig you've ever played in your entire life?
I was fortunate enough to be extremely close with the late great Dimebag Darrell. I worked with him on his guitar column. We were very close friends. I played, they did a tribute. Ozzy Osbourne loved Darrell. So at an Ozfest in 2006, I think, no, 2008, there was an Ozfest in Dallas, and I was asked to participate in the Dimebag tribute. That was about the same audience. So yeah, so it's sort of 40 years later, I played to the same size crowd.
Oh, oh, that's
So
incredible. Yeah. I want to go back and talk about early in Grim Reaper's career. You said earlier the band formed in 78, 79.
so
Um,
yeah,
and,
I yeah, long story short, again, my favorite saying of the day. Um, I joined a band. I was at university. Well, just before I went to university in England to study of all things mathematics, I joined a local band, and they were called Crafty Jack or something. I don't know. Sounds like something out of Spinal Tap. But myself and the singer, that wasn't Steve at the time, got on really well, and basically we splintered off from that band and took the drummer with us and found another bass player, and that became Grim Reaper. And there was a really tight-knit local community back then. I was from a small town called Droitwich, but there were bands from Evesham, and there was Rothschild, the English Rothschild, not the American one, and they were a great glam band. And there was also a band called Medusa that had this amazing singer by the name of Steve. And long story short, Rothschild got signed, and two members from Medusa left Medusa to join Rothschild. At the same time, Grim Reaper, there was a heavy metal label called Heavy Metal Records, believe it or not, in Birmingham. They did a compilation album called Heavy Metal Heroes, and we had a demo called Bleed 'Em Dry that had done really well in the independent British charts. Back then, there were three big weekly music newspapers, Sounds, Melody Maker, and New Musical Express. And because of the new wave of British heavy metal, they started printing heavy metal charts, which were run by DJs. So I got to be friends with these guys, sent them the tapes, and they really liked them. So we started appearing in nationally printed heavy metal charts. Paul Birch saw it, asked us to be on this compilation called Heavy Metal Heroes. And we recorded it on a 4-track in the same place we recorded the Bleed 'Em Dry demo. And back then, the singer's name was Paul Woofer, we called him, Paul DeMicado. And we were quite a different band in as much as he was a weird cross between David Lee Roth and Phil Lynott. And we used to do a lot of Thin Lizzy covers, so they would call us Grim Lizzy or Thin Reaper. Back then, like we would be half original, half that. But we did a song called The Reaper for this compilation record, and they got great reviews. Every review mentioned it as being one of the highlights. And as a result, Heavy Metal Records offered us a contract. And we were actually going to sign it. And what's ironic is the song The Reaper became Final Scream.
Okay.
So the riffs remained the same, the melody and the lyrics changed. But so we were supposed to sign the contract, and Paul didn't show up. He went AWOL for like 3 months. So at the same time, Rothschild split up, and I'm like, well, screw it, I'm going to call Steve. So I called Steve, and the rest is so Grim Reaper changed as a result of that. So the Reaper was a pretty heavy song, but the rest of it was more sort of it was more Saxon-esque, more sort of little bit of Van Halen. I had a stripy guitar back then, like everyone my age did, because of Mr. Van Halen. And Paul was very, like I said, Woofer was very Phil Lynott-esque in his like Phil Lynott mixed with David Lee Roth, very different approach. So we morphed when Steve changed, my writing changed. So a couple of songs that were with Paul, the heavier songs like The Reaper became Final Scream. We did actually, The Show Must Go On was actually a song that myself and Paul wrote. Those were Paul's lyrics and Paul's melody, and everyone liked it as is. So we agreed not to change that. And actually, Paul eventually resurfaced. We remained friends. He did a demo in '86 that I played on. One of the songs on that demo was called Wasted Love, that we liked so much we ended up using. So he's got 2 writing credits on Grim Reaper Records. But yeah, and we remained friends. But yeah, Steve joined, and then we got offered the Ebony deal, partly because Steve had just done a record with a band called Chateau that were on Ebony. And he, not surprisingly, impressed the hell out of the owner, who turned out to be a complete thief, because he went from this council house to a mansion literally within 3 years. So by the time we were recording the second album, he was living in a castle. And long story short, to end that chapter, so we got locked in this. So we did Fear No Evil, See You in Hell, and Fear No Evil with Daryl Johnson in his studio. We recorded. He moved to this castle. We recorded Rock You to Hell there, and it just didn't sound right. It was a beautiful room, but it didn't. The drums didn't sound right. So RCA were like, nah, you've got to re-record this. And in the meantime, he breached the contract. So management went, hey, guess what? You screwed up. You were supposed to play the band this. You didn't. You've breached the contract. They're out. So we signed directly to RCA and got to make the last records, Rock You to Hell, with one of my favorite producers and now a very close friend, Max Norman, who did the Randy Rhoads stuff with Ozzy. Funny guy, brilliant producer. I used to buy records based on his name being on the back of them. That's how much I thought, kind of like Michael Wagner, same deal. And So we did that. We did the tour. Then we came back to this lawsuit, which I mentioned earlier. And a big reason the lawsuit was thrown out of court is we were told we couldn't speak to the press about it, even though RCA relocated me. Steve joined Onslaught, which broke both our hearts, but we knew it was the only thing we could do because we could either sit and be landlocked in this lawsuit for goodness knows how many years or carry on with our business. So RCA said, we just want to keep you. So I got relocated to the States. Steve joined Onslaught, that sadly didn't become as big as they should have done because that record was great, as I mentioned. But what happened was after I was in the States for about a year, I got contacted by a big BBC that was one of the four big stations in TV stations in England. I can't remember if it was ITV or BBC Two, but someone got hold of the story about how this guy was stealing from bands. And we couldn't be part of it because of the lawsuit, but they did speak to me. Long story short, they did an hour documentary on his basically abuse and taking advantage of young sort of bands with contracts that had hidden clauses and stuff in them. And he literally went bankrupt overnight because everyone involved in the business went, I'm not selling your records. So he lost everything. I don't know if I mentioned his name. If I did, forget it. It doesn't matter. But yeah, so karma's a bitch,
Yeah.
and and it has no best before date. So it took a while, but he got his.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I have a bunch of questions pertaining to that timeline there. Um, Recently I found out that you auditioned for Iron Maiden. When was that?
I actually didn't audition. What happened was they I saw the I don't know how many American folk know this, but the new wave of British heavy metal, there was a DJ called Neil Kay that was at the forefront of that. He was a DJ at a place called the London Roundhouse, I think it was called. And he became such a phenomenon through Sounds magazine, through Sounds, the weekly paper I talked about, that he actually did a tour. I was in Manchester. I was at Manchester University at the time. Grim Reaper had just formed. That I'd been formed for about a year. Paul was still in the band. Um, Neil Kay did a tour, and he had three opening acts, one of which was an unsigned Iron Maiden, and the other of which was an unsigned Saxon. That's how big this DJ was. He played a show with two of the biggest, like, new wave of British heavy metal bands, Saxon in the UK, Iron Maiden everywhere. And I was blown away by both bands, especially Iron Maiden. And this was even before Dennis Stratton, because this was before like the first record. And Sounds, there was an ad in one of the papers saying Iron Maiden looking for guitar player. So I sent in a Grim Reaper demo, and I got a very nice letter back that I still have with an Iron Maiden stamp saying, "Dear Nick, unfortunately, we're sorry to inform you that the position has already been filled. We wish you all the best." And they had an Iron Maiden stamp, so I immediately made a Grim Reaper stamp. So I didn't actually audition. I applied for the gig, someone already got it, or they listened to the tape and lied because they thought I sucked, but whatever. So it's a good story. And I'm good friends with Nico McBrain. I don't think I've ever told him that story though, because Nico was a good friend of Jim Marshall's, who I worked for like nearly 20 years. And I've gotten to play with Nico on a couple of occasions, including playing Lost for Words. But I don't think I've ever told him that story. I should. Next time I see him, I'll show him the letter because I've still got it.
Yeah. Did Grim Reaper ever play with Iron Maiden at all?
No, no, we weren't. They kind of went into the stratosphere almost immediately.
Hmm. All right. I want to talk about the song "The Show Must Go On" from the "See You in Hell" record. That's almost like a power ballad and a very long power ballad. Was there ever talk about releasing that as a single for that first
No,
record?
I think no, number one, because it was written by myself. That was basically that was a heavy there's a heavy Gary Moore, Thin Lizzy influence on that power ballad. You can hear it actually. It's got that theme at the start, which is something, like you listen to Parisian Walkways. Like there was a theme at the start of Parisian Walkways or Still Got the Blues. That was one of Gary Moore's trademarks was to have a ballad, like a power ballad, with like a guitar hook before the vocal. So that was just our tribute to Thin Lizzy, basically. So no, there was never any talk of that.
Mm. And were you happy with the way the first record was promoted?
I mean, to answer your question, not in England, no. In America, hell yeah. I mean, like, See You in Hell got to medium rotation on MTV, which is how most people got to know who we were. So yeah,
Yeah, and it went up to number 73 on the Billboard charts, which is pretty incredible,
which
especially at that time with all those amazing bands around at that time in 1984.
no, I'm often asked, do you ever wish you were 20, you've had a great life, do you ever wish you were 25 again? And my answer is, yeah, with one big caveat, it would have to be 1985 again, because I don't want to be 25 today. It's a different world now. I'm not saying it sucks, but I liked the world better before the internet. One of my favorite Motorhead songs was the chase is better than the catch, and the chase has gone away. The sense of discovery, the sense of finding a new band. Now you just punch something in your phone. Back in the day, you had to go to a damn record store. You had to buy a record and take a chance. You went to a concert early to see the opening bands because there was no way you could hear them otherwise. That's how I saw Van Halen. I was smart enough to go early to a Black Sabbath show. And that was a game changer. So you would go to shows, no one was watching the damn show through their phone. They were actually there experiencing the moment in the moment, not watching. They've paid all this money to watch someone through a phone. I don't get it. But anyway,
Think everybody just thinks that they're gonna, capture this video that if they throw on YouTube, because everybody has to create content, that, everyone's gonna watch their video of the show that they went to.
and yeah, but so you end up spoiling other people's experience because your video will invariably not look good and it will sound like crap because the phone can't deal with the volume. And you take away, like now you go to a concert knowing what they're going to play. I liked it when you just went, I wonder what they're going to play. There was an excitement there. You didn't. I interviewed Nuno Betancourt recently, and he said one of the things he said he said that social media has taken away the mythology of rock and roll to a degree. He said you didn't know what half these people looked like. Nowadays, you go on Twitter and you can find out what they just had for breakfast. It was kind of cool and not really knowing what they looked like.
So back to to see you in Hell record. We're talking about 1984. Well, what did you guys headline in America? I can't remember. Did you guys
Yeah,
support someone?
we headlined we headlined big clubs and theaters.
So right
And
from the get-go in America, on the strength of that record, you guys were headlining clubs and bigger theaters.
yeah,
Wow.
on the second tour for a while, we opened for Uriah Heep, which was an honor, number one because of Mick Box, number two Lee Kerslake, who played with Ozzy, and also Trevor Bolder, who played with the Spiders from Mars, for goodness sake, with Bowie. It's like I was sitting on tour buses just picking their brains, going wow, and just going wow, I'm really on tour with these guys. It was only
Yeah,
for like a week or so, but it was great.
yeah, I was going to say that's kind of surprising because Grim Reaper was much heavier than Uriah Heep, and I just
Yeah.
was wondering what kind of reaction you guys received from their audience.
A really positive one. That part of the reason we were on it because on that tour for that little while was because we had like we could put backsides in seats if that makes sense. So a lot of people came to see Uriah Heep, but a lot of people came to see us as well. No, it was good. It was a good bill.
Yeah, because you're a young upcoming band. You had a record that was in the Billboard. So this is on the Fear No Evil tour. So
Correct.
1985.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I remember seeing you guys on I never will forget this, July 23rd, 1985. You guys played in Buffalo, and that was the first time I saw you. And you had a band called Trash, who was the opening act. And
Right.
yeah, it was a great show. And your guitar playing was just unbelievable.
Well, thank you. That's it. Folks, if you listen to this, I paid I sent this man $20 before the interview via Venmo, so this is all BS, by the way. But thanks for the compliment. You're earning your $20, my friend.
Yes, and also for that record, you recruited a new drummer. You had Mark Simon come in, and he replaced Lee Harris. What was the reason for that? For Lee leaving the band or being replaced?
He got we were moving forward as a band. Plus Lee had a very happy marriage, and that touring gets in the way of that stuff. So we agree, and we needed to move forward, and Mark was the right drummer to do it with as well.
Mm. How difficult was it to record Fear No Evil so soon after touring for See You in Hell?
Um, I would write all the time. Steve was very creative as well, so that was how it was back then. It was tour, record, tour, record. There was a cycle. So we wrote the song like you got to remember too is that See You in Hell came out. We actually recorded See You in Hell in '83, but it didn't come out in America till '84. So we'd already started writing Fear No Evil and started playing some of those songs live. We didn't play any on the American tour, but in England we were already experimenting with some of those songs. So we'd already got half of the album in our back pocket, and it was tried and tested live as well.
At this point, 1985, Fear No Evil, were you guys more popular in North America or over in Europe?
North America was our stronghold, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And
There
then
was there was that whole new wave of British heavy metal thing that we were on the tail end of. To me, the bastion of that was, because it's really started in the 1980. You had Judas Priest came out with British Steel, which is still a landmark record for me, and they were already like established as a great band by that time. But then you had Iron Maiden come up, you had Saxon, you had Diamond Head, who were amazing. I went to see Diamond Head and fired a drummer the next day. It's like, oh, the bar's that high. Sorry, we can't have you in the band. So yeah, so it was a great time to be around. There was a lot of heavy metal was it wasn't popular, but it was popular, if that makes sense.
yeah, I remember that. I was there. I saw Judas Priest on that British Steel tour, and yeah, Iron Maiden was coming around, and Black Sabbath had Ronnie James Dio with
Oh,
Heaven and
yeah, we
Hell.
can't
I mean,
forget that. Yeah, yeah, Heaven, Hell, and the Mob Rules. Those were, and then Ozzy finds friggin' Randy Rhoads and comes up with those two masterpieces. So it was a good time for everybody.
yeah, yeah, it truly was. So let's fast forward to a Rock You in Hell, September '87. Um, So that was the last record you guys put together, the classic lineup. What was that tour like? And what was the very last date that lineup played? Do you remember when it was and where it was?
I think we played a festival in England while the lawsuit was going on. But yeah, that tour was memorable. It was the Hell on Wheels tour. Like we had effectively had a year off. Like we lost a little bit of momentum because of the lawsuit thing, but it was worth it because recording with Max, like Max pulled the best out of us all, especially I think myself and Steve. I think Steve sang phenomenally on that record because Max had an ability to pull something out of you when you thought you'd given 100%, he'd find another 30. So, and the tour we did with Halloween and Armored Saint, and I like Halloween and respect them, but Armored Saint with Dave Pritchard, what a monstrous quartet they were. They were just, you got the mighty John Bush singing. You'd got Gonzo and Joey Vera as a rhythm section. Dave playing great guitar. And us headlining, and Halloween and Armored Saint would flip flop. And I really liked it when Armored Saint were second on the bill, not third, because the energy level they put in the crowd was ridiculous because they were just a great band. Fond memories of that tour, fond memories of that tour. And I guess the highlight was us being shown on the Headbangers Ball on Halloween. The show from Prince's club. What is it, Third Avenue, whatever it is in Minnesota or Minneapolis, wherever it is. But yeah, that was another one of those moments where like if this stops tomorrow, I'm good with it. The thing about that too was is because it was that was halfway through the tour and like we didn't have any breaks, so it was like halfway through like a long tour and they keep like people will keep putting stuff on like Facebook and YouTube of like I think Night of the Vampires up there, See You in Hell's up there, another couple of songs are up there. And Steve's voice on those clips, I don't know if you've seen them, is freaking
Yeah.
fun, absolutely phenomenal. Like, in my opinion, my humble opinion, um, I was shocked he didn't get the Iron Maiden gig.
Yeah, when
You
Bruce
know,
left, right?
like with the greatest respect to Blaze Bailey, I loved Wolfbane, but a different kind of singer.
Yeah,
I would have thought Steve would have been right up there. And the Priest thing, I'm friends. Like Ripper Owens is the same level of Steve's, to be honest with you. Like Ripper's an extraordinary singer. The first time I played with Ripper at a Dime Bash, I had the same reaction I had the first time I played with Steve. When he opened his mouth, this the power of the voice and the richness of the voice made me stop playing guitar. And that's exactly what Ripper did. So,
well,
but yeah,
yeah,
Steve was, if to pay tribute where tribute's due, I think that Steve, along with like you've got like Rob Halford, the metal god, you've got Bruce Dickinson, the Siren. Then other English singers were amazing. Like you've got Glenn Hughes, who's English, and Steve Grimmett, in my opinion, is right up there. He belongs in the power in those hallowed paragraphs alongside the Halfords of this world, the Ronnie James Dios of this world. He was that
yeah.
good, in my opinion.
I do agree. And like I said, when I was, prepping for this interview and going back and watching all these videos and listening to the records again, it was shocking, like how good he was. And I knew at the time he was, but like going back and listening to it again, it's like, wow, this guy is absolutely incredible. And he was right up to the very end too.
Yeah, no, I mean he could hit notes like the same as you watch. Like, I don't know if you've seen Judas Priest recently.
I've
The-
seen videos. I haven't.
What?
I've seen
What?
KK's Priest a few times, but I haven't seen Judas Priest on
No,
this
well,
current tour.
KK's priest, of course, is Ripper, who's he's I mean good friend. Like when with myself and Steve Stein, who played with Steve in Grimstein, they did an album together. When Steve passed, we did a like we'd done some stuff with one of the few benefits, one of the few positives of COVID was I remember so Steve Stein is a YouTuber, great guitar player, great guy, friend of Steve Grimmett's. He called me up just when COVID was really taking the grips, and he said, "Hey, I'm doing these quarantine jams via the internet, and then we film as we play, and we put it out there." He goes, "I'd like to do see you." He said, "I'd like to do Heaven and Hell. Would you be interested?" And to be honest with you, as opposed to lying, a voice in my head was saying, "That's Ronnie James Dio." And I was already making excuses as to why I couldn't do it. Like I was watching some paint dry or something. But so I asked the obvious question was, yeah, I said, of course I'm interested. Look, I have to look at my schedule, but who's going to sing it? And he went, oh, Steve. I went, I'm in. That's how it was a split second. And if I don't know if you've seen that, it's up to like 750,000 views on Facebook, I think. His vocal performance, very few people can sing a Ronnie James Dio song and do him justice. Steve's one of those guys. Steve's one of the precious few that can do that. Like see, he's up there with the Rippers of this world, the Rob Halfords of this world. And that was a blessing. So we ended up doing that. We did Number of the Beast, which was great. We also did Still of the Night, another great English singer, David Coverdale. And we also did, was it Slide It In or something, or Smooth and Easy, another Whitesnake song, I can't remember. But that was a huge gift to me to be able to, even though it was done, I was in a different time zone and in a different continent. We performed together again via the wonders of one of the good things about the internet was the fact we were able to do that. And that was a blessing, especially, little did we know that a couple of years later he would be no longer with us. So
Yeah. What was he like ill before he died, or I mean, it seemed that it was
no,
kind of sudden.
no, it was I mean, I'm no doctor. He passed in his sleep, unfortunately. He lost his leg, unfortunately, because he was diabetic, but no, he just passed.
Oh, and he was only 62 years old too. That's
Yeah,
fairly young.
that's too young,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But he left us an incredible gift, that that will that will live on. You know,
Absolutely.
as did that, he's because he was that good. He is that good. His memory remains thanks to those songs. So
Mm.
and it and on top of it, and I know it's a cliche to say this, he was a freaking nice guy, genuinely nice person. You know, everyone tends to, oh, someone passes, oh, they're the greatest person ever. I can look you in the eye and say, yeah, Steve was a very, very special person. He had a big heart, a heart that was as big as his voice.
Yeah. How close did that fourth record get to being recorded? The fourth
We
Grim Reaper
we
record that
demoed
was
the, we
rumored,
demoed the whole. I jokingly wanted to call it Nothing Whatsoever to Do with Hell
right?
because we'd pretty much written all the songs, and there was going to be a cover of Cold Sweat on it, the
Hmm.
Thin Lizzy song,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, it never came to be like we demoed it all, but it was demoed with a drum machine. I think there's a bootleg of it somewhere, but it's Steve singing great. But I would have loved to have done that with Max Norman properly, but some things just aren't meant to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's no way of revising the what you
No, I
have
wouldn't.
and
I wouldn't
remixing it.
want to. I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to do it without Steve. I would want I think like it was a demo. Steve sang better than most people on demos, if truth be told. But to me, a demo is a demo. It's meant to like, hey, this is what the song sounds like. He was better. His vocal performance in that was exceptional. It was, and I've still got the tapes, but it was done on like an 8-track quarter inch, so it's not great quality. It was done as a demo. It was a sketch of a song, and I would hate to sully the memory with something that wasn't all it should be. I think sometimes things like that should be left to lie.
Are there any previously recorded tracks that haven't been released?
No, like back in the no, that was it. It was everything we recorded was put out.
Hmm. How about like live concerts that, you know, have pro recordings, anything like that? I mean,
The only one to my knowledge was the only one that was pro. You got to remember it was the 80s. It was the 87 kind of thing. The only one that was pro recorded was the MTV one, but then MTV had that fire. So I think there was a fire at one of the big MTV studios. So all those masters are gone, unfortunately. So what's there is there, and I'm good with that. I have fond memories, and it's there's that MasterCard ad that says priceless. I view that time of my life as priceless. I can't put a value on it.
do you have any ambition to ever hit the road again and tour, or you're pretty content with what you're doing right now?
I through my friendship with the late great Dimebag Darrell, I still play quite a bit. Like I'm the MD, the musical director for the Dime Bash, which was thriving until COVID hit. So, and that was basically myself and Rita Haney. who's Dime's better half, the Dimebag's hag, as she likes to call herself. There was such love, and still is such love for Daryl. We would do these tributes to Daryl, and we would sell out places before. Like, we would do one every year in Anaheim. It would sell out before we even announced who was playing. And it was high level people. I got to play a Kiss song with Ace Frehley and Vinnie Paul on drums, and Corey Taylor singing. I've played alongside the likes of Dave Grohl, Charlie Benante, way above my pay grade. But because I'm the MD, and I don't play that many songs, but people go, no, you've got to play. Like the last one, I was going to give the Grohl spot to someone else, and Rita's like, no, you've given away the last three spots. You're going to play with Dave. So yeah, so I've got to, so I was doing that. I've done a lot of Ride for Dimes. I've played with, I've got to jam with Lita Ford at a festival. I got to play, what's it called? Like Back to the Cave, which is my favorite song. Long story short, when I first started working at Sweetwater, one of the guys in the guitar gallery had a cover band that was really good, and he asked me if I'd like to jam with them. And he gave me the set list, and I picked two Warrant songs because I like Warrant. Like Down Boys is a great song. So is
Mhm.
Uncle Tom's Cabin. So is Cherry Pie. I don't care what you say about them. They're freaking good songs, and they're hard to play right because they're very well arranged. So Joey Allen, who's one of the members of Warrant, they're still touring to this day. They play like 50, 60 gigs a year, big festivals and stuff. He also works for Pearl Drums. He came to Sweetwater with Pearl Drums, and I went to say hey because we've known each other for years. And he said, "Hey man," he goes, "I hear you played some Warrant songs." I said, "Yeah, I love them, and they're great. They're very underrated. If you can't play the second verse of Cherry Pie, if you know one verse, it doesn't mean you can play the others because they're all slightly different." He goes, "We're playing a big festival in 3 weeks. Do you want to come and play that song?" So I'm like, "Of course, duh." So I looked at the bill, and my friend Lita Ford was on it, and I signed Lita to Marshall. So I just sent her a text saying, "Hey, I'll see you in a couple of weeks." She goes, "Really? Where?" I said, "Oh, at this festival." And she texted me back with like, "That's not exactly close to where you are now. Why are you coming out?" I said, "Well, I'm playing Cherry Pie with Warren." And her response was, "Well, in that case, you better play a song with me, mother effer." And that's so I got to play with Lita Ford. And people go, "I never knew you smiled so much when you played." And I'm going, "Dude, I was 3 feet away from Lita Ford playing one of my favorite songs of all time with her." So I've got to do that. I've played with Quiet Riot a few times. Well, no, so I'm good friends with Rudy Sarr, so I played with him. I'm good friends with Chris Jericho. I played with him. Um, I did a Dime tribute when Dime, well, this is a very long answer. I apologize. When I worked for Marshall, I got the Marshall gig because they came out with a preamp called the JMP1, and I came up with the idea of doing a medley of famous songs. So it would go from clean to dirty to extremely dirty, from classic rock to metal to pop. So it would literally go from Metallica to U2 to Michael Jackson to Queensryche to Anthrax to Pantera to Stairway to Heaven for 3 bars, that kind of thing. And when Dime passed, like myself and Zach both spoke at the public memorial, and we were outside Vinnie Paul, who may he rest in peace. We were outside his house, and Zach was playing me in this river. And he said, "Hey dude," he goes, I'm playing Guitar Awards 25th anniversary. Why don't you do a Dime medley like you did for Marshall and play with me?" So I wrote the medley. It was supposed to be a one-off thing at the House of Blues in Anaheim. Next thing I know, Zach asked me to play. He's played 9 shows on his East Coast tour. Then Disturbed asked me to play for him. Opening for him, I opened for Anthrax with it. Was Shadows Fall, that kind of thing. So, and I'll only do it with the family's permission.
Mhm.
And the most recent time I played that was actually Zach just did the Berserkers Festival in the Poconos,
Yeah.
with Clutch and Rival Sons and the Iron Maidens and Zozo, some freaking great bands. And he called me and said, "Hey, brother, do you want to play the festival?" And I figured, yeah, great. I'll play like the fourth stage in the afternoon and enjoy the show. And then literally a week before the show, he sends me the schedule, and he put me on the main stage after Clutch. I'm like, shit, no pressure there. So that's the most recent. I think that's the last time I played. Oh no,
Wow.
tell a lie. I'm producing a local band who were really good called D-Day. They got the opening slot for George Lynch when he came through a few weeks ago, and they asked me to play lead guitar for him. And I've known George forever, so I of course said yes. So yeah, I still keep my hand in. Do I want to tour? Yeah. Will I play one-off shows? Absolutely, all the time, because I love
Now,
playing.
what about a solo record? I mean, you're so connected with so many great artists. You'd have tons of special guests. I think it would be incredible.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I've pondered the idea, but part of me wants to, part of me likes my legacy where it is for whatever my legacy is worth. I've been fortunate enough to be I did get so I've been a journalist for Guitar World for I did a bunch of columns, I've done books with Dimebag Darrell and Kirk Hammett, once again way above my station because of what I did for Guitar World. I was their ghostwriter for their columns, which basically meant I engineered and produced it. Does that make sense? They spoke and they dotted every I and crossed every T. I just did the mixing and sent it to them for approval. Make sense? But where was I going with this? So yeah, but I did Circus's guitar column for like 10 years. I did 101 columns for them, all in all. And one of my heroes is Michael Schenker.
Yeah.
And when I interviewed Michael, and I'll never forget this, I asked Michael, my question to Michael was, you were with UFO for a relatively short amount of time. Why do you think the records you made with them are still held in such reverence to this very day? And his answer was, because we never got the chance to make the record reverend. Why the hell did you make that piece of shit? Because we never
Right.
got, and there's
Yeah.
there's an element of truth to that. And while I part of me would love to have the fourth Grim Reaper record come out, I don't think I could top Rocky to Hell because the vocal and the production, Max Norman 1987. I kind of like that as the full stop, if that, or the period, as you Americans say.
Yeah. I understand. I respect that. I understand that. I feel like 1991 was really like the last year that kind of like that era of music kind of stopped. I mean, yes, some artists put out product after that, but I really think everything peaked at, before 91, before 91. I mean, you really didn't see many. I mean, Iron Maiden Brave New World was 1999. That was a great record, but
Oh,
there really aren't that many.
I would, Priest's last two records have been freaking great.
Yeah, they
I
have
have
been.
to
Yeah.
say, Firepower. Oh, geez. And the last record, yeah, amazing. Um, Actually, have you heard the most recent Saxon album?
Yeah, Saxon is another band that like, keeps getting better and better. And like Stryper's another band that keeps getting better and better.
You know who else who's doing great records? And it's with a favorite old singer of mine, is Accept.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's a link between Accept, there's a common link between Accept, um, the last Saxon record, and of course Judas Priest. And it's that Mr. Sneap character.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything he
That
touches
guy
turns to
knows.
gold.
Yeah, because he's a fan. I love Andy. Andy's just a passionate SOB. And you can hear it in his production. It's fantastic. Him and Jason Richardson, just great producers.
But my point is that, like, even though those bands we mentioned are coming up with good quality music, I still feel the fans are just like, they just want to hear some of the older stuff. I'm sure they appreciate the new stuff, but I mean, basically, they're there to, relive their youth when they see Judas Priest. They want to hear, stuff from Bridge of Steel and Screaming and Vengeance. And
Yeah, of course, but and that's the cross a great band has to bear. Be it Black Sabbath, be it Iron Maiden, be it Judas Priest, be it Kiss, be it Pantera. Pantera towards, people still wanted to hear Cowboys from Hell, and they still do to this day. God bless
yeah,
them. And that's not a bad problem to have. The same with Metallica. And I think 72 Seasons is a great record, but people would be quite happy if they just went out there and played the first five records, stuff from the first five records. And reliving your and this that's the beauty of music is it's to me it's the especially heavy metal. I mean, Dimebag said it best. He said heavy metal's like that mole that keeps trash in your garden. You can't kill it. It'll go underground for a while and it'll come back and make another mess. And like music to me is the only true international language. And the metal fans are such loyal, metal is not a fad. I know it sounds cliche, metal for life, but it's true. And there's nothing gives me greater pleasure than, going to watch for example, like the Pantera celebration with Father Zach and Father Charlie with Rex and Philip. And you'll see three generations of people there. You'll see a grandfather with their kid and their kid's kid all singing Walk. That is beautiful. Ditto at a Judas Priest concert. Years ago when I worked for Marshall for a long time, but I also worked for sorry, I'm talking a lot, but I love this subject. I was at a Sonosphere and Iron Maiden were playing, and I was backstage because I was working for Jackson Guitars and EVH at the time. And there was a guy about my age actually younger than me with a kid that couldn't have been any more than 10 years old, dressed exactly like Eddie from the Trooper. The Iron Man thing. He
yeah,
got
yeah,
the flag, the saber, the jacket. It was Hollywood. It was freaking great. And I said, I work for Jackson and Fender. Iron Maiden use our stuff. Do you mind if I get a picture for the website? And they were like, yeah, of course. So we took the picture and I said to the kid, I said, so do you mind your dad dragging you to these concerts? And the kid belligerently went, he goes, this isn't my dad's concert. This is my concert. And the dad said, yeah, he dragged me. That
mm,
was That's the power of great metal. It transcends generations. It transcends language barriers. I've met people where I can't talk to, but because we're wearing the same shirt, there's a connection. And
wow,
that's the power of music. And that's the people say, are you tired of people asking about see you in hell? It's like, no, because I've met so many people who say, and I still can't deal with it to a degree. I think that they call it imposter syndrome, but they'll say that represents a time in my life that it always takes me back to that moment. And so I don't think it's that bands are not producing records that are that good, but they don't mean the same to us now as they did, as say, um, Metal Gods meant to me in 1981, or Am I Evil meant to me the first time I heard Diamond Head play it, not Metallica, with the great respect to those guys, that it takes me back to a moment in time where it was like, and there's something about, see, I remember where I was when I heard Van Halen 1. I can tell you exactly where I was, exactly what I was doing. I can tell you exactly where I was the first time I heard Randy Rhoads, because those moments stick with you.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And if it's a fond memory, you always want to go back to that feeling. So
Yeah,
yeah,
like
I still love hearing On Fire.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Like I said earlier, I saw Grim Reaper for the first time on July 23rd, 1985, and I remember every moment of that day. And like, ask me what I had yesterday for lunch, and I don't think I can remember. But that was, you're right. It does bring back these great memories, and
And it's a moment in time,
yeah,
and I really like that era a lot. I mean, this is probably me in my get off my lawn mode, but like I said before, would you like to be 25 again? Yeah, if it was 1985, because there was no one was looking at a damn phone. They would look
Yeah.
each other in the eye and have a conversation. You would go, my son would go, so you went to all these big festivals. What happened if you and your friends got separated? Because there was no cell phones. Said we would arrange at a certain time at a certain place where we'd meet. What happened if you didn't show up? You didn't get a ride home. And that happened to me once. My own fault. I had way too many adult beverages. But that was what it was. Really? Yeah, that's how did you and your friends get together? We made a plan to meet at such and such a time, be it rain, sun, or sleet, and that's just how it was. And I remember those times fondly.
Yeah, yeah, so do I. Um, Nick, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. It's been a really interesting interview. I want to end by asking you, what were your top five most influential guitar players?
My five top 10 Oh, the one thing I got to do is you asked me about the Kramer. We never finished the story.
Oh, right,
Long,
yeah,
very long story short. So the guys from Kramer who I'm friends with, they would ask me stuff like, "So what did you like about Because I was using a Beretta, which is what this guitar is.
yeah,
It's with the angled pickup that just one volume control, Floyd Rose. And one thing I really liked was it had a maple body, and that gave it a certain aggressive edge to it, like for the metal chunk. And because of the See You in Hell video, I had that Yamaha SG with the Union Jack painted on it. They turned up one day to Sweetwater last year, I think it was, and said, "Hey, you got 5 minutes?" And I said, "Yes." So I met them. They said, "Have a look at this," and they opened the case up, and it was a prototype of that. I was going, "What the hell is this? We want you to try this." So I took it home, played with it for like 2 weeks. They said, "Really try it." So I played a show with it, recorded with it, yada yada. Went back and they said, "Well, would you like to keep the guitar?" I said, "I'd love to." They said, "Well, let us ask you this. Is there anything you'd change about it?" And I said, "Yeah, the only thing I changed was I reversed the headstock because I'm a huge George Lynch fan. In fact, the one I showed you has the reverse headstock." And I said, and I put the old logo on it, which was the pyramid logo, because the prototype has it's a banana headstock, but pointing the right way. Long story short, they said, "Well, if we do those two changes, would you like to do a limited edition signature?" That's how it came about. But anyway, so to answer your question now, the five most influential guitar players on me back back in the day, and I have to go back to the founder fathers of why I became who I am or who I am not. Um, I've got to say Brian Robertson and Scott Gorham of Thin Lizzy because they were a huge influence on me. I have to say Tony Iommi because he's the riff master, he's the riff god, and he's a lefty and a lovely human being. Um, Gary Moore, um, the guys in Priest, and then it would be a tie. It's got to be an even break because they both hit at the same time. It'd be Eddie Van Halen and also Randy Rhoads. And in more recent times, George Lynch is ridiculous, insane. Yngwie Malmsteen, Dimebag, may he rest in peace. And a guy that no one ever talks about, but he was Eddie Van Halen's favorite guitar player, Alan Holdsworth.
yeah,
I got to be friends with Alan, unbelievable talent. And you can hear Alan Holdsworth all over Eddie soloing on Fair Warning. And Eddie's untouchable. So that was a lot more than five. I just went on
yeah.
and on and on and on. But poetic I've
Sometimes hard to narrow it down to five.
I've started and I won't finish. And that's a hard one because it depends what day it is, what I've just listened to, what mood I'm in.
Sure.
Basically, I just like anyone who can move me with music, and it doesn't have to be complicated. I saw AC/DC when I was 18, which meant Angus was 20. And he's still doing it, man, and he's still doing it great. That's the power of rock.
Yeah. Was that with Bon Scott was in the band at the time?
Oh yeah, I actually roadied for AC/DC for a day when I was at Leeds. When I was 18 in Leeds, they played on the Power Age tour before they got really big.
Right.
Played Leeds Polytechnic, and you could get a free ticket if you helped move stuff. So I did.
Wow. Did
Those
you have
guys,
any interactions with Bon Scott at all?
not apart from saying all right, he said all right, mate, something like that. But no, he was like, I've since had quite a lot to do with Angus. I did some Guitar World stuff with Angus, who was a lovely human being. I did a lesson with him for Guitar World, and then they asked him if he'd do a column, and to my great honor, he said, "Yeah, I'll do it, but only on one condition. It's got to be that English bloke." And I was the English bloke, so I got to do stuff with Angus, which was great.
Wow. Wow. Not many people can say that.
Uh, Not many, and I got to do the same with Iomi, which is great. People keep saying, there's a saying, being in the right place, the right time. I'll add a caveat. You've got to be in enough places, enough times that when the right time arrives, you're actually there. And I think that's my story. I'm like that ugly mole that won't quit that Dime talked about. So, but thank you for taking the time as well, man.
Yeah, it was a great interview, and thanks again, and best of luck at your upcoming gig. I wish it was here in America, but
Yeah, me
maybe
too.
one day.
I have a question. When will this go live, by the way?
I'm going to try to get it up this weekend.
Well, in that case, if you're in England and you're watching this, get your ass down. Sorry, arse, ARSE, not ASS. That's a donkey. Get your ass down to the Mecca in Swindon. Millie Grimmett and her good friend Karen from America have put a lot of hard work in, and a lot of people are putting a lot of hard work into paying tribute to the late, great Mr. Grimmett. And it's for a wonderful cause. It's for the Diabetes Foundation, which is something Steve suffered from. So come and watch some great metal, meet an idiot like me, and support a great cause and pay homage to one of the truly great English singers in heavy metal of all time, the late great Mr. Stephen Grimmett.
Well said, Nick. Well, thanks again, and we'll see you again soon.
Right, my pleasure, my friend. Take care, bud.
You too. Bye bye.